CIA. He was killed because obviously he's a powerful figure. He's working with coalition, and Al-Qaeda didn't like that. He was kidnapped and beheaded. And then his brother took over, and his brother was kidnapped and beheaded. And then, or I'm sorry, his son. And then his other son, Sheikh Khamis, took over. But being a very young man to be in charge of such a powerful tribe, he was really ended up being more of a figurehead. The real guy who was in charge was this guy. His name is Brigadier General Retired Abdullah Jabara. And he was the deputy governor who took over the province after the Al-Jabaris came to the province. And he was really a politician. And you know what you think of when you think of a politician. He was very much an American-style politician. This was the only time I ever saw him in kind of the traditional Iraqi garb. He was usually in a business suit, you know, very polished look. He spoke good English, which obviously made it easier for him to work with coalition forces. By this time, he was no longer the deputy governor. There had been 2 elections, and he was now just a provincial council member. But everybody knew that he was really the guy who was in charge of Saladin. And he was really at the center of this fight between Tikrit and Samarra, between the old power and the new power. This is a picture of him with Colonel Kane, and we're just walking right through the middle of the street in Al-Alam. And it was so safe that you could do this. You know, nothing ever went bang in Al-Alam. He told a joke. He liked to tell a joke about Al-Alam that is kind of an Iraqi joke that they told amongst each other, that an American mother found out that her son was being deployed to Iraq, and she called the president and asked the president. You know, and the president asked, "Well, do you want me to get your son out of going to Iraq?" And she said, "No, just send him to Al-Alam," because it was so safe, nothing ever happened to her. So but as I said, he's definitely the most powerful guy, and he really had fingers in everything. You know, like I said, Colonel Ahmed, the police commander, was really his muscle. This guy right here, his name's Sammy. He is an interpreter, a U.S. interpreter. He is from Al-Alam, and he is from the tribe. And so he knew everywhere we went and everything we were doing. And you couldn't fire him because he had, General Abdullah had this network that really controlled kind of the interpreter management. So you kind of had this tail everywhere you went. And we would find all kinds of innovative ways to not take him on places where we didn't want General Abdullah to know what we were doing. But there he is in his hometown, feeling at home. The garden spot of our area was Ador. Ador was a little island of 2006 and 2009 Iraq. And you don't know it, but you've also seen pictures of this town. These are the pictures of this town. Saddam Hussein was pulled out of the spider hole in this town. And it's no accident that Saddam Hussein was hiding in this town. This town is the birthplace of the Iraqi Ba'ath Party. And during the heyday of Saddam Hussein, when Saladin was the most favored location in Iraq, this was the Beverly Hills of Saladin province before Al-Alam. All of the big party members had summer homes here. All of the generals from the army, when they retired, they would retire here. Obviously, since the war, this was the center of the insurgency. This was a huge Al-Qaeda town when Al-Qaeda ran Iraq, or I ran this part of Iraq. And we were in a knife fight every day to take it back from them. And once Al-Qaeda went away, this became the center of an insurgency called Jaish al-Tariq al-Naqshbandi, which we call it JRTN because that's a big name to have to remember. It was really the armed wing of the new Ba'ath Party. And this is really the insurgency that's there now that we really spent all of our time trying to fight. Ador's favorite son is this guy. His name is Izzat Ibrahim al-Duri. He was the vice president of Iraq when we invaded, and he's the only guy in the deck of cards that we haven't gotten. He's still at large. He is also the head of the new Ba'ath Party, and he's also the head of JRTN, the most serious threat to continued Iraqi stability. He's kind of an interesting fellow. We feel like we got to know him, though we never saw the guy, unfortunately. But he, in addition to being the vice president, he was also an ordained sheikh of this Sufi order of Islam called Naqshbandi. It's kind of like a cult almost. And back in the 90s, when after the Gulf War, when Saddam Hussein was, kind of teetering and looking for a different kind of power base, he toyed with this idea of creating a Ba'athist Islamist cult, and this is what they latched on to. What they ended up with instead was the Saddam Fedayeen, which you saw we had so much trouble with during the war, but this was kind of the proto-Saddam Fedayeen. And all of these guys that were in this cult were now the leadership of the New Ba'ath Party armed wing, the New Ba'ath Party Army, the JRTN. So we really wanted to find this guy, and we spent a lot of time looking for him, but unfortunately we never got him. And a lot of the reason is because he had a lot of sympathy within Saladin province. The biggest change that I saw from the time I was in Iraq in 2007 with a different unit, and we were in a knife fight with the Sunnis. When we went back in 2009 with Task Force Patriot, they were begging us to stay. They were saying, we do not want you to leave, because they were afraid of a Shia-led government after we left. They were, and not without justification, because we were constantly hearing that policemen were being fired by the hundreds because of former Ba'ath ties. About every couple weeks, we would get we would hear of a warrant with like 30 names of the most powerful Sunnis in the province because they were former Ba'athists, and probably many of them were. They were the powerful men of Saladin province. So it was they wanted to keep these guys around. They didn't necessarily agree with them. They didn't necessarily want this guy in charge of them, but they were afraid that when we left, there was going to be a fight. And if you're going to have a fight, you want insurgents on your side, because they have some soldiers from the army who are Sunni, but a lot of those guys are kind of for Iraq and not for Sunni Arab Iraq. So they wanted to keep these guys around. So a constant fight for us was not training the Iraqis or getting the Iraqis security forces better. It was getting them to fight these guys, because they would go after Al-Qaeda all day, but there was very little Al-Qaeda left. They did not want to go after these guys, because these guys had a lot of support inside the government.